We're supposed to be learning about Yemos Mashiach, right? Now, there's a mistake that I have. First thing on my page says Hilchos Teshuvah. That's the second line. Actually, these halachas are taken from Hilchos Melachim, where you are, and afterwards on the second page, towards the bottom of the first page, we get into Hilchos Teshuvah. So I guess if you have a pen, scratch that out. This word should be Hilchos Melachim. Now, so you're talking about Yemos Mashiach. As you know, my shtick is talking about Korban Pesach, and you're familiar with my Haggadah, but we're not supposed to be talking about that now because, per Rabbi Nadel's instructions, it turns out the next Jewish holiday coming up is not Pesach but Perm. So I would have said, so let's talk about Perm. No, but we have to finish Hilchos Melachim and talk about Mashiach Kumin. So absolutely not. Yes. Now that all our holidays have gone through changes and will go through changes again, but Purim and Hanukkah have been observed the same way and will be observed the same way, with one essential difference. For some reason, the Mishnah says that when there's Malchus li Yisrael, means Jews have their own kingdom. So you have this concept of the people in the little villages come into the larger towns to hear the Megillah before Purim, on the market day before Purim, Monday or Thursday before Purim. Yeah. But nowadays, we don't do that. But there is Malchus Yisrael. As a matter of fact, I would imagine what we're witnessing with our own eyes is actually the stage in the Maccabean kingdom where Hyrcanus and Aristobulus were fighting over who gets the throne. And they brought in the Romans, and they decided, Pompey decided who gets to be king and just gets to be a puppet of him. And that basically led to the Romans eventually installing the Herodians, who were just puppets of theirs. And that's what we have to watch out, because history repeats itself. If we do not assert ourselves as a country, we're going to be completely lose our independence to the United States. Okay, that's happened before. Back then, the United States was called Rome. Before that, the United States was called Assyria. And this has happened a few times in Jewish history. So watch out. Although I'm telling people who are a little bit older than me, perhaps I should be telling this to other people my age. We have to change our politics, otherwise we're going to be swallowed alive. Okay, so there you go. Now, which halacha exactly did you leave off in Hilchos Melachim about Mashiach coming? Because we have the fourth halacha, the fifth halacha, depending on which version. This is the Machon Mamre version, and here the Rambam's talking about what might change, what will be when Mashiach comes here. So a lot of this has been discussed by the Rambam previously in Hilchos Teshuvah, which is a good segue to that. So we'll see some halachas here in Hilchos Melachim, and then see what the Rambam says in Teshuvah, talking about more esoteric matters. As I said, my shtick is talking about Korban Pesach, how you're going to do Korban Pesach differently, how your Seder is going to change, even if you don't attend the temple. God willing, 6 weeks from today is Korban Pesach. 6 weeks from today in the afternoon. So the majority will not be at the temple participating in that. However, the majority will have to sit down at the Seder and eat Korban Pesach and get ready for doing so. So that's practical halacha, real lemaisa stuff. But here we're going to talk about more esoteric matters, about the world to come, reward and punishment. Not much we can do about it. As a matter of fact, these types of arguments cannot be settled until we get there. So let's see what we have here. Rambam says in the fourth halacha, Lo nithawu haniviim v'achachamim yemot hamashiach, lo kedei sheyishlatu al kol haolam. The prophets and the sages did not desire the days of the Messiah, or more accurately translated, the Messianic Era, in order that they could rule the world. I know that there are many people believe that that's the global Jewish conspiracy's intention is to rule the world, but it turns out that's not. V'lo kedei sheyirdu bagoyim. Yirdu means, like it says in Genesis, means dictate to everybody what to do. Modern Hebrew word for a dictator is a rodan. Okay, we're not supposed to rule over all the goyim. V'lo kedei sheyinaseu otam ha'amim. We don't want to raise them up. We don't want the goyim just to look up to us and say, "Oh, look, the Jews are the best." Great. V'lo kedei le'echol v'lishtov v'lismolach. No, it will happen, but lo nisavu for this. That's just like, that's not why the sages and the prophets are looking forward to the Messianic era. Not, yes, Jews will be on top. That's not the point. And not because they'll be able to eat, drink, and celebrate. It's not about that either. Ella kidei sheyihu pnuyim batorah v'chochmatha. They'll have free time, or as my father liked to say, peace and quiet, so they could study the Torah and its wisdom. In this case, what's the difference between the Torah and its wisdom? It means the Torah is the practical instructions of how to live your life. Wear tzitzis in the morning, right? Get up and do this, and keep your schedule. And chokhmata is the inner wisdom, Kabbalah maybe. Velo yikel lahem nogeis umevatel. They'll have no one pressing them for anything. Nogeis sometimes the collector, the creditor, coming for some money. Umevatel is someone who's just stopping them from their studies. Kidei sheyizku l'chayei ha'olam haba. So it would merit the life in the world to come. Does everybody agree what the world to come is? Absolutely not. That we're going to see that soon. Why? Look at me, it's funny. We agree there's a world to come, but the Rambam's definition of world to come, for example, is radically different from that of whose? Nachmanides, for example. They represent two major schools of Jewish thought here. Kimoshe biyarnu bilchot Teshuvah, as we saw in Hilchot Teshuvah. Okay, so we're going to read that soon after we read this halacha. Uvoto azman, in that time, Messianic era, lo yesham, lo ra'av, lo milchama, lo kina, with the haruth. There'll be no war, no famine, no jealousy, no competition. Shatova tihyeh mushpat harbe. Goodness will be overflowing everywhere. Just we're all full of good. You have whatever you want. There'll be a utopia. All of the delights will be available like dust. Velo yikeh esek koholam elo ladat as Hashem bilvad. And the world will be busy with what? Getting to know Hashem. By the way, technically speaking, we could have this now. The problem is, Jews, and on the larger scale, the Gentile world, do not behave in a way that takes advantages of all the technological breakthroughs that we have. You have too many people who are jealous, or worse, murderous, who are ruining it for everybody else. You see that there's some cultures, for example, the place that was most blessed by God until recently was the United States, right? So they kept to a certain type of laws, and they allowed for everybody to succeed, and they enjoyed so far the Messianic bounty the most out of any society in history, right? But they're trying to ruin it already with their bad ideas. And then you look at a place like Russia and its history, and even though it had, let's say, a lot of the same capabilities, technically speaking, the same potential, they have a vast land and lots of people, and they have nuclear know-how. They could have all the knowledge that the Americans had, yet they've always created a culture that destroys itself. Okay? There's always, instead of having, let's say, allow people to have free and fair elections, they always have some sort of dictator who's trying to just crush everybody. And their culture is naturally meaner. I'm not trying to say that Americans are superior, which we are. I'm trying to say that they're better than, let's say, the Russians have been. Okay? Well, at this time. Yeah, but you see, or the way the Chinese hurt themselves. The Chinese could have all sorts of material benefits, but they have a real destructive outlook on life, and they were even killing their own children. They have ideas. Whereas, let's say, normal, healthy cultures see childbirth and etc. as something good. The Chinese came against that. They were trying to control their own population. They have a lot of potential. They have a lot of space, and they have a lot of know-how, but they just don't use it right. Whereas here in Eretz Yisrael, you have a very small amount of Jews, very little space, very little resources, but they make the best of what they can. Why? Because they have the best outlook. Even the worst Jews are far better than people in other countries. They want to live here. Why is it better? It's better for, let's say, a person to leave Russia, a Russian to leave Russia and live in Tel Aviv among secular Jews. It's better for him there, correct? But we ruin these things. We have this capacity. The Rambam, just like today, the Messiah could be here today. The Messiah could have come in Rambam's time. What was preventing it from happening? Humans, people, choosing to do the wrong thing. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be much better in that time. And the key is in our hands. And therefore, once they have all this time to spend just studying the Torah, because they won't have to work too hard for anything, everything is available to them, they will be great sages. Right? They'll be exceptionally wise. We also know that which is hidden and also really deep. Stumim is sometimes you can't figure something out. You learn a Gemara, you have to really break your head over it for a while. Imagine other things. There's so many other ideas out there in the physical sciences and also the secrets of the Torah that very few of us understand or even get to. But we'll all have that opportunity, God willing, once we could just have some peace and quiet. We yasigu dat boram kefi koach adam. They will grasp the understanding of their Creator, each according to his abilities. As it says, Ki mala'ah haaretz de'at Hashem. For the land was full. In this case, it literally means was full. It's a past tense verb. But the prophet's speaking as though he's viewing the Messianic era from the past. And he's like watching it. Because the whole land was full of knowledge of the Lord. Kamayim layam echasim. Just like the water covers the seas. And that's how the Rambam concludes Hilchos Melachim. So we had to conclude on that, becoming the Messiah, because that's how we conclude all Divrei Torah. But I'm not going to conclude with that. We're going to Hilchos Teshuvah. This is the bottom of the first page, the first halacha in the 8th parak. The Rambam says, "Ha-tovah tzfuna letzadikim, hi hayei ha'olam haba." The good that is set aside for the righteous, the reward for being righteous is life in the world to come. What does it mean by that? Life in the world to come, not life like this life. V'heim ha'chayim she'eni mahem maweth. They are the life. In this case, it shouldn't be in English. I shouldn't say it in the plural. In Hebrew, it's a plural, but in English, it's a singular. That's the life that has no death. What's the problem with living in this world? You could die any minute. You're fragile and mortal and subject to all sorts of forms of harm. So some people, anticipate that they'll live to be 120, but for many, it doesn't work out that way, right? Yeah. Yeah, I never liked that blessing. Ad mea ve'esrim. You're basically limiting someone. Right. Like what do you tell the guy on 120th birthday? Have a nice day. Like that's but you understand the absurdity brings out this point that perhaps that's not a Jewish thing. The Rambam never said such a thing. Yeah. Well, I'll have to do the math now to see if you're correct. But that wasn't the intention. When someone said it, he wasn't saying gematria. He didn't say odd gematria. Oh, okay, fine, maybe. But even then, you want to live past when Eliyahu Navi shows up. Okay, notice he's like, oh, I got to the finish line. Then that's the end. So, well, yeah. So I'm not definitely trying to do that. I'd say that not enough. We have to prepare for Beis Hamikdash, being able to sit and eat the korbanos and everything. You should plan to do it in your lifetime. By the way, another plug: get yourself to Agada because what are you going to do when you're sitting at the Seder there? It's like, oh, finally made it, and I'm not prepared. He says this is life. It's the goodness she'ein imah ra'ah, no bad. Okay, all good, 100% good. Hu shekatu b'Torah l'man yitav lach v'harachto yamin. So that it be good for you, and you will have lengthy days. Mipia shmua lamadu. From tradition, they learned l'man yitav lach. So that should be good for you. Le'olam shekulo tov. In the world that is entirely good. V'harachto yamin, and you will have lengthy days. Le'olam shekulo aroch. For the day that is entirely long, the great day. That's the next world, the world to come. Rambam continues, Schar tzadikim hu she'yizku linoam zeh. The reward for the righteous is that they merit this the noam means this pleasantness. V'yu batovazo. They'll be present in this goodness. Ufeiraona rishaim, the comeback for the wicked, hu shelo yizku l'chayim elu, that they do not merit this type of life. They get this world and that's it. Ella yikaratu v'yamutu. They are cut off and they are dead, in both senses. They're dead in this world and they're cut off from the next world. One who, or anybody who doesn't merit this type of life, person who doesn't get any share in the next world, so he's the dead person who does not live in the next. Choya is, I guess, like chai. It's a present tense verb. Ela nichrat berisho. He is cut off in his wickedness, cut off from everything. We oved kabema. and he's lost like an animal. The Rambam's implying that, let's say, your cat, even though you liked it, it does not have olam haba. The animals live only in this world. They don't have some sort of reward or punishment in the next world. Okay, that's it. There's nothing left there. What? Yeah. Yeah. Good. So hold that question because Nachmanides will get into that. Seems that those who have passed away according to Rambam are in the next world. Yeah. Well, I mean, what does now mean? You're using a temporal term that only describes this world. But technically speaking, according to the Rambam, and we'll get into this more, you punch your ticket here, you'll find yourself in the next world, provided you didn't do anything really wrong. That you get hoping that's the case with everybody. V'zehu ha'kareth ha'katuv b'Torah. This is the kares that's referred to in the Torah. No olam haba. Shnemar hikareth tikareth hanefesh hahi. That soul shall surely be cut off. Mipia shemua lamedu hikareth ba'olam hazeh tikareth lo'olam haba. Cut off in this world shall be cut off in the next world. Kilomar she'otah nefesh sheparasha min haguf ba'olam hazeh. That very soul that separated from the body in this world, does not merit life in the next world. Even its next world is cut off. Rabbi Lev said, don't take this too literally. He mentioned that some people have this view that you're a human, you have a physical soul, and there's a Casper inside of you, like a ghost, the neshama spirit. That you die, suddenly this thing that's in there floats away, like in the movies. It's not exactly how it works. It says you're a neshama that's actually you. You're one piece, but there is some essence of you that lives on in a different plane altogether when the physical body dies. Okay, whatever that means, I don't know what that means. I've never been there, but we assume this to be true. Ha'olam haba ein bo guf uchviyah. There is no physical form. When Rambam says gviyah, he means actual body. Bones, skull, intestines. Guf means physical form. Guf is an idea that he was describing earlier in Hilchot Mado, Yesodei Torah. He was saying how a Greek idea that there's conceptual bodies, right? The world of forms, and then there's actual guf, what we call the physical manifestation of something. So that's what he means. Guf means no physicality and no bodies. Ella nafshot sadikim bavad. Only for lack of a better word, souls of the righteous. Below guf, just like they have no physical form, just like the ministering angels. And angels exist. It's part of also fundamental of our belief, but they don't have any physicality to them. Ho'il ve'einbo gviyot. So, being the case that this next world there are no bodies there. Ein bo lo b'achila ve'lo shtiya ve'lo davar mikol dvarim shegufot b'nei adam srichin lahen ba'olam hazeh. He says that's important. Rambam says if there were guf in olam haba, maybe there would be perhaps some sort of concept of physicality. But he says no gviyah, so there's no body, therefore there's no eating. Eating and drinking are functions specifically of the body. There are many physical things in this world that do not eat or drink or have any need for it. For example, inanimate objects. There's not even those. So the people who are there, just in the neshamas, the fact that there's no body there, there's no eating or drinking, or any of the other things that people need that are there because they are human. They have physical bodies. So bathing, you could imagine any number of human needs or human desires even that do not exist in the next world simply because there's no physical bodies there. Someone asks, do married couples do they share a place in Olam Haba? Marriage is intricately and intimately connected with one's physicality. As a matter of fact, it so happens that every marriage can be broken by death. That is, a man dies, his wife is a widow, there's a big nafkamina, she can be married to any other man. That's kosher. So obviously that broke apart the marriage. And also with regards to a man could have, technically speaking, according to halacha, many wives. And he could also separate from his wives in this world. A get destroys the marriage. What happens to souls that had been related to each other by marriage in the next world, or through genealogy. Is there any connection between one's father and mother in the next world? Because there's also that there is a physical connection there, but do the neshamas have such a thing? Never saw a discussion thereof, but it's a good question to ask. I don't look forward to finding out the answer anytime soon, but I just wonder what it is. What? Well, really? Okay. Well, I don't study those enough. So, what was that?
I'm sure a lot of people have seen that, but not uncommon if one spouse is living, especially if they're quite a bit older than the other spouse ends up with a blah, 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 not within a short period of time. The Shama one is so tired to the Shama.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's other cases where it's not that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen this. There's some couples are really close, such that, like I said, one passes away and the other one just decides, okay, I'm gonna go join them. Yeah, that happened. V'lo yerabo davar min advarim moraim lagufot ba'olam hazeh. So the neshama, nothing occurs to it that could have occurred to, let's say, physical bodies in this world. There's no sickness, no car accidents, okay? No high school graduations. Kigon yeshiva wa'amida v'shena u'mita. Sitting, standing, sleep, death, we'etzev u'schok, or sadness, or laughter. Wait a minute, the neshamos don't laugh even. Do they enjoy? They enjoy God's presence, but they don't laugh. Oh, so is that Yemos Mashiach or Olam Haba? Says no, it means Shuva Hashem es Shivas Tzion. When the ingathering of the exiles happened, then we'll also, okay, but that happened already. Okay, next, and other things like that. That's what the early sages said. Ha'olam haba, the next world, ein bo lo achila velo shtia velo tashmish. There is neither eating or drinking nor relations. Ela tzadikim yoshvin ve'atrotehen v'rashehem v'nanim yiziza shchina. They are just sitting. He used the word sitting here. The Rambam says there's no sitting. Yoshvin means, I guess, just hanging around with their crowns on their heads. What does it mean to wear a crown? I'm sure there's no clothing in the next world, right? Crowns on their heads. What does it mean, crowns on their heads? It means the knowledge of being correct, okay? The achievement, okay? V'nanim miziza shchina. And they're just enjoying the splendor of the shchina, whatever that means. Somehow or other, I am sure that there are greater tzaddikim than myself who have actually figured this out. They have had some experience of this in this world. That's what a Navi is able to do, for example. A Navi is able to get beyond the bounds of his physical intellect and his imagination and actually get messages from on high. Moshe Rabbeinu himself went among the Melachim a few times, 40 days and 40 nights without eating and drinking. So that's possible. So they could have this. There are people who have tasted this in this world even, perhaps in dreams. But this is something that most of us, from a conscious standpoint, because we're stuck in these lumps of animated dirt, it's very hard to understand. So now we've explained to you there is no physical body, physical form even, in the next world. There's no eating and no drinking. So when I said that they're sitting, okay, it's an expression. Okay, I didn't mean that they're literally sitting. I mean they're hanging out there. They're there, so to speak. Okay, below amal, below yega. They're there without any effort or without any toil. When I said their crowns are on their head, it means the knowledge that they will know that because of this, keeping the Torah, they have merited Olam Haba, which you and I would call vindication. Yeah, the crown of vindication, yes? Well, I like to say the righteous, but in this case, it means those who succeeded in avoiding all the sins they're supposed to and earning something, refining their characters. Yeah, and by the way, tzaddikim isn't limited to Jewish people. It's possible that you could have other, everybody according to his potential in life and how well he lived up to it. Mitsuya Imahem, hold on one second. Okay, yeah, the knowledge that they were correct in this. Zachu lechem about Mitsuya Imahem. So it's there with them. V'hiha atara shelhem, and it's their crown. Kanyan she'amar Shlomo, just like Solomon said, ba'atara she'itara lo imo, with this crown, for lack of a better translation, that his mother placed upon him. What? It was the day of his wedding. That's a mushal for something. V'harehu omer, v'simchat olam al rosham. Isaiah says, actually in two places, that this eternal happiness will be upon their heads. Means, like I said, this vindicative knowledge. Happiness isn't some sort of physical object that can actually rest upon one's head. They used the mashal. I saw someone who seemed very happy, had this, he was just glowing over something. I don't know why. It was a sports figure. You'd think he'd become, king of the world. And he actually, he exhibited this look. You could sometimes see it on certain people. There's a look of achievement. There's a look of happiness that you can't actually describe. It's not, and love also. Ramakud said, love, everybody's experienced love. They know what it feels like, especially for children. It's not a physical thing you could see. It's not something you could describe, but everybody knows it exists. So too, these conceptuals or these ideas, we can understand what they are, even though we cannot point the finger at them or sit there anything physical. Umahu zesha maru. What does it mean they enjoy the splendor of the divine presence? They know and they understand. They can actually grasp this concept, the truth of the Holy One, blessed is He. That which they cannot know because they're stuck in their bodies, which are dark and lowly. Yeah, see, we're actually limited. Our physicality limits us, which is why a lot of times in order to achieve, let's say, a higher state of consciousness, you actually have to get yourself unconscious. You have to go into sleep. You ever understand that sometimes when you're dreaming, you see things in a totally different way. You can't even describe it when you wake up, but you understand things in a totally different way. I've been told that people who take certain substances also see things in totally different ways. I wouldn't recommend trying it. I haven't tried it myself. No, I don't say it as a joke. I say it could actually affect the brain. It stimulates certain parts and it numbs other parts. It dulls them such that the way things are understood are totally differently. Yeah. Perhaps that's what they say with Perm. Oh, good. Now we can mention Perm. What's the point of getting a little shikar on Perm? Not supposed to get drunk, like the Shulchan Aruch points out. Beis Yosef says getting drunk is an avera, right? It's the gateway drug to all the other averas. So he says, like the Rambam, you're supposed to fall asleep. So if you've had enough to eat and a little bit more to drink than you're used to, and then you're in sleep, so you'll have confusion. You won't know Baruch, Mordechai, and Aruch Haman. So you'll begin to think things in an entirely different way. Okay. Good luck on your Perm. Kol nefesh ha'amura b'inyan zeh. Every soul that we've mentioned in this case, einaha neshama she'itzricha leguf. That's not the neshama that needs the goof. Sometimes neshama refers to simply respiration. So it says that God gave the ability to breathe to also the animals. Or it says the neshama is in the blood. That is, the respiratory faculty is conveyed to the rest of the body through the blood. We know this now. This is something that people figured out early enough but didn't understand the chemical pathway behind this. What happens? You breathe air, and through your lungs, it gets in contact with your blood, but the blood doesn't spill out your lungs, and the blood gets oxygenated, and it goes to the rest of the body. And many animals have this also. As a matter of fact, we're barely unique in this regard, that we respirate and that we have blood circulating that brings us around. That's what the Rambam's talking about. He says, that's not this type of neshama, okay? Because that's actually you could find in even the most primitive life forms. Ella tzurat hanefesh. I'm talking about the conceptual form of the nefesh, which the Greeks described. Shehi hadeya shehi siga haborei kfi kocha v'siga deot hanefredot ushar ma'asim. This is the intellect, the thinking up here that can understand the Creator. Animals don't have that. According to everyone according to his ability. Kocha means, I guess, the potential there. It's able to also understand there's other intellects out there and other, actions. you can do, we're talking about Shabbos, Meleches Machsheves. Meleches Machsheves means there's actually purpose involved in what you're doing, right? So this is the part of the intellect that could actually create purpose, which is unique to people. Animals don't have this. This is also that form that we were discussing earlier in the fourth paragraph of Yesod Torah. Nefesh binyan zeh. So that's called nefesh. It's a type of neshama. In Kabbalah, they talk about nefesh, ruach, and neshama, right? So that's different than what the Rambam is saying. Chayim elu, this type of life, lefi she'eni yimahen maweth, because there's no death involved. She'ena maweth ela mimorot haguf ain't sham guf, because death itself is something that happens to physical bodies, and world to come has none. Nikru tzuror hachayim. This type of life is also called the bundle of life. That's an expression taken from Tanakh. Who coined that term? Abigail. She said, Shnemar, V'hayatha nefesh adoni tzura b'tzura chayim. The soul of my Lord shall be bound up with the bind of life, this bundle of life. She's talking about God. David HaMelech is going to have a long reign, and he's also going to have reward of Olam Haba. Why was Abigail saying this to David? She was trying to convince him not to kill her husband. Why? Because that would be a sin that would ruin everything for him. You guys remember the story. This is the reward for which there is no reward greater than it. It is a goodness after which there is no other goodness, the ultimate goodness. That's what we mentioned before. This is what all the prophets were desiring. They wanted to achieve the state of perfection in being close to God. And there's a few names they also gave to this type of life, all through allegory. Har Hashem, God's mountain. Sometimes Har Hashem in the Torah. What are the physical Har Hashem? Sometimes Mount Sinai means the place, the Temple Mount. Yes, okay. Zion, or sometimes just all of Eretz Yisrael is Har Hashem. But in this case, Har Hashem is the world to come. Umikom Kodsho, the place of His holiness. The Derech HaKodesh, the path of the holy. Lechatzrot Hashem, God's courtyards. A lot of times, God's courtyards are actually the courtyard temples of the courtyards of the temple. In this case, it means Olam Haba. Ohel Hashem, the Lord's tent. Noam Hashem, God's pleasantness. Heichal Hashem, God's palace. Beit Hashem, God's house. And Shar Hashem, God's gate. Even though there's also equivalents of all the last three also in the temple. The sages, by way of allegory, called this goodness safe for the righteous. They called it a meal. They talk about a great meal where they have fantastic beasts to eat. The Ra'im, the Behemoth, the Leviathan, right? One from each type of species. There's wild animal, domesticated animal, and fish there. Obviously, it doesn't literally mean that the Messiah is going to show up and somehow he's going to find a gigantic sea creature, kill it, and then feed it to the tzaddikim, and that's going to be their reward. Or he's going to find a gigantic wild buffalo-like creature and kill it and give that to the tzaddikim. It's not literal, okay? And the idea of, by the way, pointed out by the Rishonim, that God's going to have these great beasts first engage in combat and destroy each other, and then the tzaddikim will eat them, is not literal. Tzaddikim don't get enjoyment from watching a bullfight or something like that. That's not what we do. It means that God will cause the great powers to come to war with each other and destroy themselves, but we will reap the benefits. Okay? It's like we always pray that, we're not on that side and on that side, we just hope that they kill each other. And the Bimhei of Yameinu, that should happen today. So they also call this Olam Haba. They call this great feast Olam Haba. So we have Olam Haba. How many other names we could give to it? You could actually count. So let's continue. Hanikama she'ein nikama gedola mimenu. The vengeance for which there is no vengeance greater than it. Shetikareta nefesh velo tizkel leotana chayim. The soul will be cut off and will not merit that type of life. Shnemar hikaret tikaret nefesh ahi avona ba. That soul shall surely be cut off. Its sin is among it, or it hasn't somehow purged its own sin. V'zeh ha'avdan hu shekorein oto hanaviim derech mashal. This loss or this entire, I guess, going lost, is what the Nevi'im referred to as in allegory, Be'er Shahath. Be'er Shahath means a pit that's actually empty, or it means a well, okay? Well of destruction. Wa'avadon, sometimes they just called it avadon, is complete loss. Or tofta, or tofet, that means this means a conflagration or an inferno. And aluka is like a leech, okay? It just sucks away the entire life. There's other terms also that were mentioned here. V'chol l'shon klaya v'ashkata korin lo. They also use any other term that implies a klaya, complete finishing, or destruction, whatever it is. Gehenim also. Lefi shehi haklaya she'en achrei tekuma. It is the destruction for which there is no tekuma. In this case means it's how do we say this? It means getting up again, recovering from. No, that doesn't mean a resurrection. That'd be tikka. This would be recovery. Tikuma would be a recovery. Leolam, okay, eternal. No recovery from this one. No getting back from this. Excuse me. It's also a loss that can never be recovered. Okay, complete loss. That's what karis is. Shema tekal beinecha tovazo. Maybe you'll think too lightly about this future goodness. Utdameh she'ein sachar mitzvot v'avayot ha'adam shalem b'darkei ha'emet. You might imagine that the reward for keeping the commandments and also man's existence in this world is not complete. There's no true, maybe there is something, but I just don't understand it, or this is not it. Perhaps, maybe the point of life is, I don't know what's happening next. Bari v'shema, bari adif. I have what I know, and then there's the shema, what I don't know. You're telling me this all happened afterwards. Why don't I just enjoy what I have now? Hedge my bets. Okay? Now I'll eat. Okay? Ochel v'shoteh ma'achalot tovot. Eat and drink good foods now. Uvoel tsurot na'ot. Okay? Copulate with good-looking women, in this case. Run after that. Vilovesh bigdei sheish. Wear clothes of fine linen. Virikma, or the way it's, in this case, it would be embroidered. Vishochein ba'ol eshen. I'll live in a nice tent of ivory, or in, say today, ivory tower. Umishtamesh b'chlei chesef izahav. Only make sure to use the finest, vessels instead of these plastic cups. Make sure it's always gold or silver. Udvarima domimahem, or things that look similar. Kemoshe midamim elu ha'arviim ha'tipshim ha'avilim ha'shtufim b'zima. Like those Arabs, imagine. He refers to them as foolish and stupid, who are awash with lewdness. That's how the most wealthy kings of the East, let's say in Saudi Arabia and all those others, they've made treaties with the Emiratis and the other rulers of those Eastern kingdoms. How those people actually live their lives. Just as the Rambam said, they go all out with everything. Their harems are huge. Their physical property in this world is a lot. Everything is eaten off of a golden plate, and they believe that for being such good servants of Allah, they're going to continue doing that in their so-called next world. And the Rambam calls that foolish. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's what they believe. They live in this world, or to the greatest extent, of course, only the vast minority can do such a thing, and they believe that's also what's going to be the next. But that's what they do. This world is what you have. Go all out. Aval chachamim uvalei deya. However, the sages and those who have a little bit of seichel up here, yedu, they should know. Shekol advrim ha'elu divrei havai vehevelhein. It's all a bunch of nonsense. Hot air. Havai is nonsense. Hevel is hot air. Ve'ein bahen tochelet. There is no actual utility in all this. Ve'einam tova gedola etzlenu ba'olam hazeh. They're not even good for us in this world. Saying that just enjoy everything physical you can get in this world, that's not even good in this world, and it's certainly not in the next world. Okay? Sorry. Yeah, our Yetzer Hara, because we are physical and we have human bodies, our Yetzer Hara is telling us that that's what feels good, but it's not true. All those are just needs of the body. Ve'ena nefesh mitaveh lehen umechadaton. Okay? The actual soul of the person does not long for those, doesn't desire them. It's that's entirely the body looking for it. Really, it's just so that you can succeed in life and just be healthy. And if you turn your eating into that, you'll feel much better. Okay? When there is no physical body, so all these physical pleasures are gone. So the Olam Haba has nothing to do with that. When do we have to stop here? We can continue. Just someone has to give me the stop sign. Okay. Well, 2 minutes. So I need someone to get up there and just like start gesticulating wildly to show me to stop. Okay. And we'll pick up afterwards. So because we're getting close to the end, I'll start with a little bit of a question that Ramban was talking about. Yes, sir. Yeah. So you can enjoy it. Every now and then you are enjoined to enjoy it. You actually have a mitzvah. It's called Shabbos. On Shabbos, even the greatest tzaddikim are told you have to have a minimum amount of food and good food, and you have to make sure that your Shabbos food is better, even if you're basically a parush all week. All you eat is like the Vilna Gaon. He ate lechem tsar and just a kibitza of bread and a revius of mayim for breakfast. You're supposed to eat, something that's shamein, right? And also, you could say this type of person, he's celibate all week long, like a Talmud Chacham, but Dafka on Shabbos, he has a mitzvah of ona, and he also has to multiply. There's a minimum that Chazal said you have to do, and you have to enjoy it because you are physical. But to say you're going to spend as much of your time as possible maximizing this enjoyment all the time, that's a problem. And not only that, he's saying that people who are wise enough know to extremely limit it, because when they do limit it, everybody enjoys a steak. But when you do limit your steak consumption, just as an example, you are able to refine your intellect and spend a lot more time, let's say, studying the secrets of the Torah and improving your character. It's actually kind of difficult. A Kohen Gadol, let's say, has a Yetzer Hara for this, or at least temptation, more than the rest of us. Okay? Or maybe now that's the problem with material success in this world. A Kohen Gadol can eat of all the korbanos all day. He gets to pick how much of the chatas he gets to eat. He could have steaks all day long. Yet he's supposed to be the one closest to God. He's given this test. He's also given the finest breads to eat, the menachos all day. That's what Kohanim eat. But he's supposed to know that he's not supposed to become a glutton. He's supposed to be standing there with God. So there is a way to do it. The problem is the foolish people, they make this the goal. They, let's say, build, I can't believe it. Can you believe what Rambam would say about an all-you-can-eat steak restaurant? A kosher all-you-can-eat steak restaurant. When you think about such a thing conceptually, what would the Rambam say about it? They exist here, right? You don't have to name them. You don't have to name names. Just saying they exist. Is there anything? Stam, during the week, I understand if it's Perm, if it's Yontif, so you go to such a thing because there's a mitzvah to eat. Simcha bas ain't simcha el b'vasar yayin. Really, it's supposed to be korbanos, by the way. Okay, the real mitzvah of eating meat on Yontif is korbanos. But for the rest of us, we don't have korban. For men, it's eating basar v'yayin. So I can understand in Yontif you'll eat more basar v'yayin. But stam on a Tuesday, that you go, you pay whatever it is, so you could gorge yourself with meat, is something that it might feel good, but perhaps just doing such a thing means that you're not on your way to becoming, a Vilna Gaon. Just think, conceptually. Beyond that, I guess I'll close with a question that the Ramban is asking Rambam over here. Rambam says the ultimate punishment, the ultimate vengeance in store for those who have done wrong is what? Kares, right? The soul is cut off. Which averas in the Torah are punished with kares? And the answer is quite a lot of them. Every single avera for which the Torah prescribes some form of death penalty through Beis Din is also considered a kares. So too, there are other punishments, there are other sins for which there's kares, But if the Beis Din gets a hand on that person, the Beis Din will punish him with lashes. Okay, they won't put him to death. What's the nafkamino? Kares is for when a person commits the sin willingly, but there are no witnesses who properly warned him. There's not going to due process. They can't bring to Beis Din to be punished. But if there are witnesses and there was a proper warning administered by the witnesses and due process is given to this person, so then the Beis Din will give him a punishment. There's 4 types of death on the menu, or there are lashes. So the Ramban is going to point out something that should be pointed out to everybody. The death penalty or the lashes save this person from the kares. He committed the sin, but he's been brought to justice. So the Beis Din inflicting it on him on the punishment, whether it's death through the 4 ways, or the lashes, will now save him from the kares. Meaning if he doesn't get punished by Beis Din, he will get the kares. So the Ramban says, if you had someone who's generally speaking a tzaddik all his life and has done many good things, I understand if he would commit murder at the end, so he gets away with it, he doesn't have olam haba. He'll be cut off from the next world. But if the same person in secret gave into his Yetzer Hara and ate a kazayas of chalev, what is chalev, by the way? Chalev is the same part. It comes right near your steak. The difference is that the chalev and the dam are removed by the people who are processing your meat. So you're not going to eat chalev or dam. But sometimes, maybe you have non-kosher food there. They didn't remove all the chalev, and you found that this piece of meat is halachically chalev, and you need a kazayas of that. Victimless crime, and you have all these other zechuyos for you, and now Beis Din can't whip you for doing such a thing. You're also cut off from the next world entirely, and you have no olam haba? Does that make sense? Well, I'm asking, do you understand the kasha? Okay? No, I'm talking amazed. A person who bemazed, slipped up once, victimless crime, he's a tzaddik, all these other things, the scales, so to speak, are full of zechuyos. No, but I'm saying he died. He ate chalev right before dying. Bemazed. So the punishment for that is kares. So I understand that, okay, so he's kares. So he goes to Olam Haba, he says, here's the scales, all these zechuyos, but there's one kazayas of chalev, bemazed, without witnesses, so he's given kares, and he's thrown into the pile with all the worst other sinners who never did anything good in their lives and committed the worst sins against other people. Does that make sense? Well, according to Ramban, it doesn't make sense. And he's going to show that even the Rambam doesn't necessarily say it. The Rambam lumps everything. Kares is none of this good in the next world. Either you get Olam Haba, you're going to be there, you've chayil, there's no eating, drinking, enjoy the Shekhinah, but those who are cut off, they don't get this. There's no neshama. They die in this world, they're dead in the next. They don't get to have Ziza Shekhinah and all that. The Rambam seems to be saying there's no gradations. It's just one or, get enjoy Shekhinah, or you're cut off for doing the sin. So God willing, we'll get to these issues and more. I guess on Wednesday, if we could get there. But that's just food for thought.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.